Fantasy. Through the ages, fantasy has evolved with mankind, developing to offer us an escape from our stressful daily lives. To quote the novel Fantasy, The Liberation of Imagination by Richard Matthews, fantasy enables us to enter worlds of infinite possibility. Through the medium, we can live the types of lives we long for in the real world. As time changes, so do the desires we hold for our lives, and fantasy evolves with these desires. As people start to want things more, whether that be something as abstract as space travel or as simple as love, more pieces of fantasy media start to pop up portraying these things. In a way, fantasy serves as a temporary solution to our unattainable dreams. By observing current themes in fantasy, we begin to build commentary on what it is people are longing for. What do current fantasies say about the modern world and possibly the future? Through this video essay, we'll take a look at an example of an abstract modern fantasy figure and what its existence reflects about today's society. The singer depicted in this video is Hatsune Miku, meaning First Sound of the Future, a Japanese artist who made her debut in 2007. The most striking feature in the video, of course, is that Miku isn't a real person. She's a computer-generated voice developed by media company Krypton Future Media, represented by a holographic performer. Despite not being a real person, Hatsune Miku is a famous singer in Japan, with a Krypton employee claiming in a 2014 Vulture interview that everyone in Japan aged between 5 and 25 knows who she is. Her success is owed to her marketing as a futuristic product which entices experimental musicians, landing her gigs with artists such as Lady Gaga and companies such as Toyota, and her design which appeals to anime fans, with Miku being the muse of many pieces of art, cosplay and music. A successful modern fantasy figure, I'll explore what Miku's success reflects about Japanese society and how fantasy as a whole serves as a message about the problems faced in our current world. A country of many advancements in technology and well-received media and inventions, there's one aspect in which Japan lags behind the rest of the world: socialization and personal well-being. With work and professionalism taking the front seat in most of the Japanese population's lives, forming bonds and having fun are often afterthoughts, with suicide claiming more Japanese lives in October than COVID did in all of 2020. Loneliness is a problem that plagues Japan, with birth rates continuously falling and depression rates rising. It has even caused the phenomenon of hikikomori, a form of extreme Japanese social withdrawal, where people seldom leave the house and live disconnected from the outside world, something quite unique to Japan. In a country where so much pressure and expectations are placed on the people, some choose to completely remove themselves from the world. But how does Hatsune Miku link to Japan's social issues? To answer this question, we'll look into the case of Kondo Akihiko, the man who married Hatsune Miku. Akihiko Kondo is a 38-year-old Japanese man who married Hatsune Miku in 2018. In this modern-day Pygmalion tale, Kondo started to gain attention for his unconventional marriage in the year it happened, receiving a mix of praise and hate comments, and being interviewed by YouTube channels such as Asian Boss. In interviews, Kondo explains that his negative experiences with women turned him off of ever pursuing a romantic relationship. In particular, he was bullied by a female colleague, which affected him so much that he quit his job and was unable to sleep or eat properly following the incident. He accepted that he would never marry until he discovered Hatsune Miku back in 2007. He stated that listening to her songs brought him happiness whenever he was struggling. Kondo's feelings for Miku eventually developed into love, and he married a plush doll in 2018 with 39 guests attending the service. Here, a link can be made between Japan's social issues and the evolution of fantasy. In a country where people are missing genuine connections and feel pressured by the everyday happenings of life, fantasy offers the solution of a false person. A parasocial relationship with a non-existent idol makes people like Kondo feel loved and appreciated, combating the loneliness that claims so many lives while relieving them of the stress of any possible bullying, conflict, or high expectations. By looking at Hatsune Miku alone, you can ask the question: who are the main consumers of something as abstract as a virtual singer? Why did the company see a possible market for this fantasy figure? And what does this say about today's society? Demand for Hatsune Miku in Japan, in my opinion, speaks on two of Japan's issues: loneliness and perfectionism. A virtual idol, as mentioned before, allows for a sense of connection and comfort for some without the pressures of a real relationship. But also, a virtual fantasy figure can be designed to appear as perfect, linking back to one of the very things that causes loneliness: high expectations and perfectionism. This virtual idol sells the fantasy of a perfect person for people who hold high standards. Kondo himself stated some of the reasons he likes Miku, being that she'll never argue with him or grow older. His standards for a perfect bride are met through a fantasy, which satisfies his desire for a woman who won't act harshly towards him. Japan isn't the only country in which fantasy is being used to combat an issue in society or to satisfy unattainable dreams that people have. Neighbouring country South Korea has recently seen the launch of aespa, a girl group with 4 real members and 4 virtual ones, which satisfies the high demands of Korean pop group consumers who expect unreal levels of perfectionism and beauty from Korean groups. I'll conclude by answering the initial question: what do modern fantasies say about today's society? I feel that fantasy has evolved to a point now where it's more advanced than it ever has been, with things like video games, cinema and others selling all types of immersive fantasies to others. Most popular modern fantasies offer some kind of a more direct link into the real world, with activism and social commentary becoming more prominent in mainstream media. In the way that Hatsune Miku indirectly serves as a cry for more human connection and bonds over in Japan, I think that fantasy universally in this day and age reflects our desire for some change and progression. Looking at popular media from the past decade, most of it contains some form of a message about the world today. The recently popular Squid Game, for example, could serve as a message that globally, we're craving a change in the economy and the way poor people are backed into corners. Or in the world of animation, cartoons such as Steven Universe and The Owl House contain themes of representation for LGBT audiences, signaling that we're craving a more accepting and representative world to live in. By analysing themes in current popular media in a country and pairing them with the issues of the people in it, we can begin to draw connections between these fantasies and what people are longing for. By asking ourselves what these fantasies entice people with, we can see what is missing from the real world.